How's it going, everyone? I'm Hoodie. I'm having a great day, and I hope you're having a great day too. I decided we'd do something a little bit different on the channel and look at one of my other real big passions, and that is Warhammer, the Horus Heresy. I really enjoy that system. And if you're completely new to it, you've not done anything for it, it's a great time because 3rd edition is getting ready to drop with the new Saturnine box set. Which I gotta say, Mark II and the Saturnine Dreadnought look super duper sweet. I like the Saturnine Terminators. I get they're not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, but they're pretty sick. So I decided I'd do a little video so we can kind of break that down and see, and maybe we'll do more stuff like this on the channel, see how it goes. Anywho, what is the main difference between 40k and Horus Heresy? Well, Horus Heresy is about the galactic civil war that tore the Imperium in two, when Horus was tempted by chaos and rebelled against the Emperor of Mankind, and how the Loyalist legions were in various ways sundered, either destroyed outright, like in the Drop Site Massacre, or like in the case of the Dark Angels, Blood Angels, and Ultramarines sent to far corners of the galaxy so they could not help in the defense of the Imperial Palace, where it was ultimately going to culminate anyway. Major differences in the game mechanics are Heresy is more, at least used to be, we're going to be getting an overhaul. But as a general rule, it does seem like they're going to keep to Heresy having a lot of older mechanics. We've seen like the cool, we've also got more stats like intelligence, not just leadership revealed. We're going to have to wait a little bit to see what they post on Warhammer community as far as those articles go with the rules, but it looks like it's going to be a massive overhaul, and it's still going to be fairly different from standard 40k. That being said, I think now is an excellent time to get in. That being said, especially if you're like me, last edition, I came in for 40k, so I'm still relatively, compared to a lot of folks out there, new to Heresy as a hobby. I was originally playing White Scars in 40k. I came over and started doing a Sons of Horus army in Heresy. That being said, there are quite a few things that make Heresy different from 40k. Number one is that it isn't as competitive a game. Heresy is a lot more about themes. Now, there are competitive events and stuff, and I'm sure there are game groups / clubs that are strictly competitive list. That being said, most folks, when it comes to Heresy, like Heresy because it is a lot less competitive than 40k. It is more about the theming of your army. For example, we'll take my Sons of Horus. I am basing them, I've actually got a Mechanum box set that I need to get out of my pile of shame and start working on. But mine are based around 2 points in the war. First one, and what I primarily like, are the Loyalists purged at Istvan 3, when Sons of Horus, World Eaters, Death Guard, and Emperor's Children sent the Loyalists of their ranks down to the planet's surface, where they were virus bombs, didn't work out, and the Loyalists led a doomed, but ultimately very more so than they thought, like the first true test of Space Marine v Space Marine combat for the 4 traitor legions, when they had to go down and personally fight the Loyalists. And mine's based around that. It is Loyalist Sons of Horus with a small cohort of Mechanum, as there is an Ordo Reductor ship that basically joined in when the Istvan 3 atrocity began. They began to fire upon the traitors, knowing that there was no hope of escape or actually taking you down, and some of them did make it planetside. And it's kind of a force of Sons of Horus with these Loyalist Mechanum elements doing a desperate last stand against the traitors, trying to take as many as they can down with them and buy the Imperium time to find out about Horus's betrayal. That's how that's themed up. Also, just because I did kind of like the theming of the Siege of Chthoniya, like where it is the less chaotic elements of Sons of Horus trying to recapture their homeworld of Chthoniya from the Imperial Fist, as long with some like auxiliary Loyalist elements. And I just really like that, the idea that these are, while they were completely down with Horus's betrayal, They really don't like the idea of the whole chaotic route that the Legion is going in, and they are doing their best to try and recapture why, to them, they feel like they are fighting the Heresy. And that's the thing, like, you do want your list to be overall thematic. That said, I do try and take more optimal things, like, for my Castellax, I'm taking the double Darkfire cannons, because I think those are really good. At least they were this edition. We'll have to see how it's going to be. We don't know anything about points. You know, you don't want to be just taking the cheesiest thing. Like last edition, last cannon heavy support squads were just super duper undercosted for what they brought to the table, and you could spam them in a lot of lists, and that wasn't very fun. Same with Contemptors. So folks did limit themselves. Contemptors, for example, you were generally limited to 1 Contemptor per 1,000 points. Was kind of like the overall gentleman's agreement most folks came to on it. That being said, like, again, you really want to just be building thematically. You want to have an idea. Another good one that I quite like are the Ultramarines Destroyer Company. I believe it is the Nemesis Company, where Yeoman had all of those that he considered less honorable forms of warfare together, and just how they, like, during the Betrayal of Calth, like, their fight against the Warbearers. I think that is a really fun, a really thematic force that you can do a lot of really sick paint things with. And that kind of goes back, like, you should be picking either a faction, or more likely than not, a legion. There are way more Space Marine legions than other factions in this one. So you should be picking ones that speak to you. Like, a lot of folks I know, probably because they're simple to paint, do really like the Loyalist Iron Warriors, as Iron Warriors often garrison planks. They did have a higher than average number of Loyalists, and I think that is really fun. There are some really good stories in the old Black Books of a lot of the Loyalist Iron Warriors, and there's also one where a very unique Salamander's Dreadnought basically converted a Iron Warrior's Warsmith from the side of the traitors back to the Imperium. And I think just those kind of things are what you need to be thinking about when you're picking a legion, when you're picking your faction. Really what you want to do. I mean, even in the Mechanum, there's, of course, the Dark Mechanum, or I should say, just because of how it broke down, the Loyalist to the current Fabricator General of Mars, how they eventually became the Dark Mechanum. I think that is another good one. And of course, you do have the Loyalist Mechanum with around the Magma City. That is another great, very tragic point in the lore. I highly recommend it. Those are the kind of things you're gonna want to look at when you are picking a force. Like, you could also just go the Golden 10,000, go with the Talons of the Emperor. There's a lot more Sisters of Silence stuff in the Heresy, and I believe, judged by some of the spoilers we got, that we're going to be getting more Sisters of Silence stuff in plastic, no less. So those are the kind of things you want to be looking at. And remember, every legion had access to everything in the generic legion pool. Like, they had the same motor pool, so you could very easily do a World Eaters tank battalion if you want to. I mean, I do know I believe there was a point in the war where the World Eaters, a lot of them just kind of left their tanks behind, and those were crewed by mortals after a point. But, you know, like, they did all have the same motor pool for the most part. You know, there were some unique things that legions had in their armory that others didn't, but for the most part, they more or less had access to the same things. Like, you could do an Iron Warrior's fast attack, you know, kind of representing, like, this hard-hitting part where they would go and kind of try and suss out weaknesses in a fortress before laying siege at full legion strength. That sort of thing. You could, same with Death Guard. There were obviously heavy elements in the Raven Guard. Raven Guard have a really thematic Cataphracti unit. From, at least it used to be in the compendium that had all of the legacies of the Age of Darkness together. Don't really know how that's going to work out in the new edition, but the Deliverer Terminators were super duper cool. A really fun, flavorful thing with Hatred Corvus Corax, because Corax really did not like how the Legion operated before he got there, and that is another just a really fun, a really flavorful thing you can do that I highly recommend you think about those sort of things when you are getting in. And again, like, remember, Heresy is more about, it is a lot more personal. Like, your force should mean something to you. It is a lot more flavorful, it is a lot more narrative driven. This isn't like 40k where you're just trying to min-max as much as you can out of your list. Like, you really want to be doing this as a labor of love, because to me, that's part of what makes Heresy fun. The folks who are into Heresy genuinely enjoy it. And you want to kind of keep that spirit alive and embrace it as much as you can. Again, you don't want to be, using last edition as an example, you don't want to be Imperial Fist Gunline with as many as cannon heavy supports. Everybody's got an augury scanner, and you took as much of your cheesy add initiative strength 10 power fist dudes as you possibly could. Like, you don't really want to be just that guy, just super duper miserable to play against, you know? And for me, what I really like, again, I love painting. I'll probably put a few pictures of some stuff I painted to the best of my mediocre skills. But I do really like the weathered, realistic look that Heresy really encourages. Even in like the official Games Workshop, you'll see where they've kind of in certain corners glazed in some like rust effects and the like, and you'll see scratches and stuff in the paint of the armor. Not super duper pristine Space Marines. These are Legionnaires, workhorses of the Imperium, who go out and fight these grueling campaigns where they can't sit there and fuss about how, like, you know, a frag grenade went off next to them, and some of that shrapnel caused a bunch of minor, you know, superfluous scratches in their armor and the like. They don't really have that luxury with these long campaigns, even before the Heresy. And that's something you got to keep in mind, that you, again, I'm of the firm belief, paint your army how you would like to paint them. Even within the Legions, you know, we know the same generic ones, but even if you look at Sons of Horus, you have the basic Sons of Horus, you'll have a darker color, and then you will have the black of the Gestera. So, I really dig, like, just the variety you can bring. Again, paint them how you want. I love that realistic, weathered, war-torn look that a lot of Heresy models are generally shown as having. You might not, though. Again, certain things, like, for example, Black Shields, who are basically have gone rogue from their Legion command structure and are fighting as their own force. I kind of don't think you would see them super duper pristine. I think they would all kind of be somewhat beat up. Again, you know, like, that is your thing. If you want to do a Black Shields force, A, we don't win those rules, coming. B, you know, if you want to do a pristine, that's fine. To me, it's just a little bit harder to justify. Same with, like, the Night Lords. The Night Lords had already kind of gone rogue before the Heresy even happened. So the idea that they'd be in the most pristine of armor doesn't super gel with me. But again, if that's what you want to do, that is what you want to do. You know, do as thou wilt when it comes to, like, the painting and modeling side. Personally, I like to try and keep my stuff WYSIWYG as possible, you know, as modeled as is, or equipped, however you want to say it. I do want that as much as possible, but I also get that, you know, some people are going to want to do a little bit more with it. Some people might like a weapon, how it performs. Absolutely hate the model and want to do something different. So long as you're, like, consistent, I think most people are going to be fine with it, at least in my experience. It is very limited. I did only recently just start playing that. So, you know, everyone's going to have their things. I am always going to say defer to your local playgroup. Defer to them when it comes to such. And I guess we'll wrap up. For me, I do want to do more stuff on the channel. I'm really passionate about the Horus Heresy. I love it. It is, well, I really liked 40k, but it didn't super click with me until I started getting into the more stuff from the Heresy. I love the units. I love the Tale of Betrayal. All of these different characters. Not only just the Primarchs, which for my Legion, I mean, Horus is cool. But, you know, ultimate good guy becomes ultimate bad guy. Not really that compelling to me. I really love the story of, like, the Mournival, like Abaddon, Loken, Torgadon, Horus Amexe. Like, these kind of characters really spoke to me. Even though I butchered the actual name of Little Horus, but hey, we'll leave it in there because it sounds funny. Anyway, those characters really spoke to me more than just Horus himself. Again, ultimate good guy becomes ultimate bad guy. Not really my thing. But again, some people really do like the Primarch. Like, I'm gonna go mid. There's no one I can really latch onto in the 4th Legion, but I do really like Perturabo's story. Like, just how he becomes so embittered and how he really just wants some praise for all that he's done for the Imperium, and he won't ask for it himself. So he has this character flaw where he really wants to reach out and be more than just this Siege Master workhorse, but because of his own just nature, he won't do it. I just really like the tragic aspect of that. So I do like him. I just, again, the Legion, like, I couldn't grab. There's nothing that really grabbed me. There weren't any other characters. I mean, of course, Barbarous Dantioch is one of my favorites, but we don't even have a model for him, let alone rules, to my knowledge. At least, we have no idea if we're going to. Maybe we'll get lucky, and they'll start to kind of go back to those fan-favorite characters in this edition. Hopefully, since they're moving a lot more to plastic, maybe they'll free up some of the resin stuff to kind of do the more minor things in the lore. That would be really neat to get some, even if it is a forgeable resin, which I've painted a Cataphracti Legion Praetor for my Sons of Horus. I know what it's like to work with the Forge World resin. I'm going to say the stuff that I pull out of my 3D printer, which I'll put up, I'll throw up one of my Trench Crusade models here, is a much more pleasant work experience, to me at least. I mean, some folks might be able to deal with the Forge World stuff. I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan of their resins. Really happy that we're going to as much plastic for the Heresy as possible. Also, kind of like a bonus thing here, I will say again, this is my experience. Check with your local play groups. My area, folks are completely fine with 3D printed bits. My Justarin are just the stock plastic Cataphracti kits, where I have my own shoulder pads and top knots on them. Again, like, just the customization and kit bashing that Heresy encourages really is just something you're not getting in Modern 40K. I mean, just being honest, like, you are just not getting that sort of thing. Not that kit bashing is complex. So introducing GW kits, even most of their stores don't really care if you kit bash things, as long as it's all GW parts. But again, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. You don't have things like the Deliverers. You don't have things like the Reaver Aggressors, where they don't really have official models for these. You just kind of kit bash them yourself. And that will be it for this video. So please tell me, what do you think? Are you hyped for the new Heresy edition? Or do you have like some grievances with it, let's say, like the moving towards a damage characteristic and all of the things that were under leadership being under like 4 different stats now? So please let me know in the comments down below, and let me know if you want to see more like this. So have a great one, everybody, and I will catch you later.